Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cyber Weekly. I am Deogratius Okele, your host, and I am with Josephine Olok, my co-host. In this podcast, we talk about cybersecurity and all matters related to cyber with book reviews monthly. I am glad you made it. So, today we have a guest, Bernard Ainitwe, and we shall be diving deep into how he got to know us and how he was interested in coming to join us here for this podcast. But before that, Josephine, do you have something to say?
No, just good morning, Dale. Thank you very much for the introduction. Good morning, Bernard. It's very nice to see you. I think you're very welcome. So, and as Dale says, excited to have you and also to understand why you wanted to be part of this podcast. But yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you too. Good morning to you too. When I saw the first podcast, actually it wasn't the first. The intention of the first podcast by Dale on one of our groups, I was actually pleasantly impressed of his ambition, and it also reminded me of my younger self. In this field, when you're trying to look for a mentor, when you're trying to do something, it sometimes becomes so difficult. But for a young man, I felt, personally, I've tried to look for mentors because I feel on every professional journey, you most times need somebody who's in the field to probably guide in the right path. And I felt what Dale was doing was on the right path, and I felt I could contribute to his path, not so that he doesn't probably take longer than some of us did or make certain errors that some of us did, but I was actually impressed. And because of the kind of work I do, I'm of the school of thought that most of the issues we have in the technology world are because of social engineering. So if the message is spread far and wide, then we kind of avert many issues that we have in the technology space. So by joining the space, I felt it was also another avenue we could partner in trying to cut down on the issues of scams or of cyber fraud. And of course, I didn't know Josephine was part of it, but I think we met at the FitSpa, and I was also impressed with it was my first time meeting you, and I was also pleasantly surprised with what you're doing.
So Thank you very much. Thank you, Bernard. We appreciate that. And I think this leads us, of course, mentoring is really important, but this leads us nicely into our first question, which is really, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into your field of work, which is, I think, forensic investigation.
Okay, it's a kind of an interesting journey. I actually started, my first job was at MultiChoice, which was actually in customer care. But it was also an interesting time because I understood the key stakeholders of any business, that if the customer is not happy, then the business does not work. I went on to go to the Inspectorate of Government, where I was an IT officer. Then as time went on, I evolved into an IT auditor. Then I ended up heading the digital forensics lab, which I was managing at the time. So my work then was to collect evidence, to analyze evidence, work with investigators, to assist them in instances of digital fraud, corruption, or any evidence that they needed to adduce in court. By the time I left, I then went to KCB Bank, where now I was given the title of forensic investigator. So, which now marinated or kind of fused with what I was doing before and now entered into the financial crime space. So, and now that most of our transactions are online, it fused into the work I do, that by the time you have an allegation, you need to have to assess, find the evidence, because an allegation, but to prove that is actually what it is, you have to have the evidence. And this evidence can be in the form of digital footprints. So that's 2 years down the road. I also left KCB. Right now I'm into consultancy, still in the same kind of field, digital forensics and the financial crime. Yeah. So that is me.
Thank you for that answer. Adele, you want to?
Yes, very good introduction. I would like to go to the next question, which is, what are the three main challenges you found within the financial sector?
The challenges, I could say the biggest challenge, of course, is that the crime keeps evolving every day. Crime keeps evolving. Today, you had check fraud. Today, you have, the next day, you have card fraud. The next day, it's internet banking fraud. There's an app. Now, the challenges, of course, are some things that are not going to change to end today, because when you have business and compliance, there's always conflict. And because of the competition of different organizations, that if Bank A says that we are introducing this application that's going to get us new customers, the next bank, because of the competition, may want to get into the next field and work backwards in terms of security. So some of our jobs now will come to clean up most times, that because of the competition, business and compliance are always in kind of a conflict, because compliance is going to slow down business acquisition, going to slow down the kind of how many people are we onboarding. Now, if you're going to say checks and balances, then business sometimes is, you're slowing us down. Competition is the market. So basically, it is that sphere that is always in conflict, that now as you as a compliance person, you always have challenges, because you as a compliance person are regarded as a support staff, while business is what is paying everyone. So that has been my number one challenge, but I have found ways of having people appreciate, especially business, that if we do not appreciate the compliance bit, then the bottom line will also be affected. So will your bonuses. So working in a way of having every stakeholder appreciate what you're doing has been a solution to the problem. But otherwise, if you don't appreciate what they are doing, then you always have the biggest conflict, because the funds to give you the latest technology also diminish, because it's just taking away, you're not bringing in. So for me, in my experience, that has been the major challenge. Crime evolving, that is really something that you, as a person, you have to keep abreast. That's why I go for these sessions, CPA, so that you understand what is going on. Because if, say, something happens in Kenya, trust me, within a month or two, it is going to be replicated in Uganda. And I think from the last session, you talked about cloud computing, that now with somebody could actually attack my bank account when they're in a different jurisdiction, they're in Thailand. So the crime, the way it evolves, that sometimes that if somebody manages to hack my account and is in Thailand, you have a challenge, that how do you handle it? Because you can't use the laws of Uganda to a person who is in Thailand. So now that goes beyond you, that now you have to speak to regulators, to government policymakers, to see how do we manage our relationship with such countries, with the sphere around us. So I think those could be the three, and I don't want to overtalk, because
that's thank you for that. I think definitely what you're saying is there is that push and pull between compliance and business, and Obviously, it's important that it's a collaborative approach to cybersecurity within businesses themselves, so that compliance isn't just looked at, for instance, as a cost center. But in terms of the attacks then that you have worked with, perhaps what really is one that has really stood out for you? You know, like a cyber attack, which you're like, my goodness, did that take us by surprise? Did we see it coming? What has really stood out for you?
There are two, and maybe I'll break them down in terms of the effect. We have I've experienced a situation where we have had a denial of service. I won't mention the place, of course, confidentiality issues.
Yeah.
Where somehow we have had an attacker who has infiltrated your system, and all your core systems are down, so you can't offer any service. And that is what could be called distributed denial of service. That sometimes these attacks depend on the intention of the person who has perpetrated them. And in most cases, in distribution, DDoS, is that somebody is being malicious in terms of probably competition. Say, I'll just give a hypothetical example. Say, Airtel, and I feel maybe MTN is my main competitor. If I manage to slow them down, and that means frustrate the clients, and that means the next thing is that they'll come to me. So some of them have different reasons, and that's why they'll manifest in different ways. So that distribution denial of service affected all our systems, that we couldn't offer any service for about 3 days, and that is detrimental to the whole organization. The other one was the effect of our clients, and this was account takeover, which was also perpetrated by social engineering. And from the investigations, I could tell that this was an inside job. At the time, we couldn't pinpoint who, but the way the signature of it was that you probably have, let's say, telecom, mobile money, and somebody will, that if I dial star, well, let's say 185 hash, and star 185 star 3 hash, I probably go to this menu. But now you find that this menu has been customized for you. That while this menu could be one where you are going to buy airtime, this menu is authorizing somebody to send money to another account. So on your end, you honestly think you're probably buying airtime, but this menu has been customized just for somebody. So why I quickly thought it was an inside job was this is not something that an ordinary person can do. Some of these things that have been in the news, especially with mobile money fraud, that somebody will do probably social engineering, card SIM cloning, but where a menu has been customized, that this is something that has come from source. And for you to actually get the footprints, you have to get access to the other system. So to me, those were the two that really were outstanding, because while you are investing in resources to cover external threats, that the biggest threat now was an insider threat. That if somebody, an admin is unethical, whatever efforts, whatever expenses you are putting to invest in high technology or secure technology, somebody inside will make it look irrelevant.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you are to piggyback on that, now for account takeover, if you hear of such stories, should someone still feel safe with storing their money, let's say in the bank?
Well, Well, even keeping it under your bed is also a threat. So at one point, you have to trust the system. But in my experience, I have found that it is not a one-person fight. And that's why I believe in a preventive action where it is collaborative, that once you also educate the users of the product, and they too can also be part of the fight of security. Because as much as the bank may secure its platforms, if Bernard decides to share his PIN, then there's so much that can be done. So most of the things that if I call you on the 071 or 07155 and I ask you for your PIN, and yet you actually know that my service provider or my bank uses a 031, I should be suspicious. It should be a red flag. But if I don't know that, because you see, some of this fraud manifests because of the kind of culture we are in. Most of our culture, we are trusting. Yeah. That if I called Josephine and said, "Oh, Josephine, your niece has just gotten an accident. She's in the hospital," that immediately your intention, because of your Christian background, because of your culture, you are going to, the first instinct is to help. But then again, it's after 5 minutes after sending the money, like, but no. My nieces, why didn't they call the mother first? Why did they call the auntie? That by the time you realize that even you who is going through school will be it will be long gone. But it's because of the kind of culture that most of us are not security cautious. And if you're too cautious, then somebody says, "But why are you too nosy? You're too strict." I'll confess to you that I've found situations whereby you're investigating a situation and somebody is actually innocent, but because they trusted their partner, somebody told, "My PC is not working. Help me with your credentials. I want to post this money as the IT helps me." Because you've been working together, you're like, "Bernard is a quick guy." But that is a time where I have used that money, that opportunity, to elevate my credentials. Say if Dell has, let's say, posting authorization credentials, and my credentials are just posting. But because, let's say, the institution has make a checker that Bernard should post this money, then Dell should authorize. And that is a mechanism of make a checker. But in this case, because I've been friends with Dell, I've created that social environment where he trusts me, because all these things about trust. I post the money, use Dell's credentials to authorize the transaction. Now, if Dell is not cognizant and says, "Okay, what did you do with my rights?" You'll find that I have been doing that for so long, and somebody else thinks it's normal. All the checks have been done. Even audit will say this transaction went through the right mechanism, but unknown to them that the same person, I used Dell's credentials to pass on my transactions.
So the person created the transaction and also authorized it.
Yes.
It's the same person.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So I find that I think awareness is so important. But I want to just take you back to the attacks that you said stood out for you, because I find it absolutely fascinating that somebody was able to change a menu. So to dupe somebody into believing that was the menu, and then led them to obviously maybe authorizing a payment or whatever. How did that happen? How did that attack? Okay, we look at it as an attack, but I mean, how did that happen? Are you able to tell us?
I'll tell you, but of course there are certain things that I can't say.
So yeah, the technicalities behind it, yes.
Yes.
Would be nice, yeah.
Okay. Just think of a situation whereby you are sent a message telling you that you have been given, let's say, 250 MBs as a promotion, as thank you for the 10 transactions you've been doing on mobile money. Now, and there is a code or a link that is telling you that for you to retrieve this, just dial star this for you to access the bundles that we have given you as a reward. Now, by clicking, if you have a smartphone, or by if you have the other small phones, the touchpads, if now I have set a code for you to actually access the MBs, but now that code inadvertently leads to another menu or gives the person access. Think of it of another.
It's not changing the menu, my existing menu. It's just giving me another.
Yes.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just like how I would probably tell you, you have had stories where people have been told for you need to have your phone verified. So dial star 16 star 3, then star 1456 star this. Now, unknown to the person that long code has a section for the PIN. So you put in the PIN, but you have actually in that one code, you have authorized transaction.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is how it really manifested. So it wasn't that the code changed. It changed if you go to the main menu, but you are given a code specific to you. So in that instance of you trying to retrieve the free MBs, you have given authorization, or you have actually done a transaction unknown to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Now, pertaining that incident of someone, having the same credentials, so he's doing both the authorization and also the transaction completely. Do you feel like, that is basically separation of duties, but since someone already has the password and all that, you find that he's doing everything too. Do you find that, like, let's say two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication would help, or what would you suggest would be the best option to prevent such an attack?
Well, you see, for that kind of situation, it is basically an internal job. But for any crime, especially in this that deals with social engineering, it's an issue of somebody misusing trust. Now, in that instance, you find that you already have separation of duties, but according to the company policies, you have flaunted the separation of duties by trusting your subordinate or your superior. It's like somebody telling you, please sign here, we want to, your supervisor telling you, please sign here, we want to authorize this, and you have not asked why. So internally, you find that it is a bit difficult because the systems have been set. The policy has been set. So most times what companies do is that you have to take action for your credentials, not sharing them. If you do share, then you are liable. So internally, it is always something that helps people get in check. That why are you using my credentials, especially if you know you have elevated credentials or rights. So it's about creating that level of how can I put it, where you're cautious of your rights. That if you have the key to the safe, do you share it with anybody? The responsibility that you have. So it starts internally that yes, the mechanisms are there, but if you do not know why you hold that position or the authority that you hold, then it is something that it's like we are playing catch up. So it's difficult to see it on the other side, but it's something whereby all companies try to make sure that you are aware of the obligation you have. And this is constant training. This is constant reminders that do not share your PIN, do not share your password. Simply put, really.
Yeah. So the obviously we all know that the weakest link is usually our people. And yes, you can have your policies, you can have people following policies, but we also now know that there is a lot more at stake in terms of what the attackers are willing to do. You know, willing to approach people even inside financial institutions with promises of a lot of pay if they are, you know, they can help them in stealing the money. So first question is, should we really be worried about that this is a trend now, that the attackers are getting smarter and also they are wealthier, perhaps they are able to leverage that they have money, that they're willing to pay people to assist them with the crimes. So what should we be worried? And as an investigator, what do you think is being done to address this in terms of obviously you do your part as an investigator, but what else can be done to stem this trend of attacks?
Of course, I will not lie to you, we should be worried, because my first instinct is that you have to look at your society.
Mm-hmm.
How is your society? What kind of people do we have? That if somebody can embezzle funds meant for lack of a better word, mabugo, then what can they do if they are in position of authority or given that it does not really matter that Bernard has so many credentials and masters and what, but ethically, how is your society? Because every company recruits from that kind of society. The same reason probably you have very few whistleblowers because of the society that you have. But on the other hand, of course, as an investigator, is that sometimes you work with the allegations at the time. But what I recommend, or what I think is the way to go, is the preventive action. Now, preventive action probably can be broken down into two. That you have the training and you have your staff and your clients aware of what is going on and how to prevent, what are the red flags. Then you'll have also what we call maybe preventive analytics or data analytics. That as an institution, are you able to see the DNA of your clients? That Josephine normally withdraws money or does her transaction once a month. But on this date, we have seen her transactions, 4 transactions at midnight. That should be a red flag. Now, if it is a bank, then we should go ahead to, maybe if we are able to have the infrastructure to pick up such red flags, to do a call back and say, Josephine, was this you? Because time is of the essence. Well, sometimes maybe catch up, but the amount of time it takes to pick up those kind of transactions, those outliers, that you can save so much. So if you delay, if it takes a month, then you may never get anything. Yes, you may get banned, but you may never find the money. But the urgency, this time that is taken to pick out those outliers, those transactions. And even then, now banks also are using threshold, even the mobile money, that it is one way of kind of curbing to reduce the damage, so to say. That if Josephine has made 2 transactions, 2 million, then you should have a unit that maybe can call back to ascertain, or before even a transaction, you can say, before authorizing it, call back on the KYC information that Josephine gave us. Say, is this the right, are you the one? Are you just kind of a callback to understand before authorizing? especially to a certain tune of money. So to answer your question, I think the preventive action is more feasible, though more expensive. But in this kind of world, of course, it would be something that everybody should invest in. That you know your trends, you know the kind of DNA your clients have, the trends. Then they'll be able to see that this transaction is actually suspicious. It may not be a fraud, but could be suspicious. But then through your analysis, you can now put it in the right category.
So the investment needs to be in the technology.
Yes, the preventive action.
And then of course the people to manage that, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I mean that makes sense.
So now, like for the people, you find that now the IT team will be the ones dealing with mostly the development of the technology. Now, let's say someone has maybe authorized a transaction in the middle of the night, and it's a red flag definitely, and it's rare for the person to make such a transaction. How are we supposed to implement what you're talking about, where someone is supposed to call to confirm whether the transaction has been made?
No, like I said, that of course different banks, and you're always limited by resources to implement certain things that you want. There are banks that have 24-hour personnel in terms to deal with such effects. Then there are, of course, banks that may not have those resources. But as a transaction, yes, the way, let's say, a Visa transaction, that if you got that red flag, the way it works, that you may be able to actually reverse that transaction, depending, of course, on the certain the kind of arrangement you have, let's say with Visa or MasterCard. So I cannot conclusively say this or that, but it also depends on the institution and the kind of resources that you have. Now, for those that have a 24-hour team, you are able to probably maybe delay the transaction. So it really depends on the resources at your disposal.
So we are, I mean, I'm fascinated by the fact that you're a forensic investigator. When you think about forensic investigator, you for me, I always think of the crime, and all that, and they come in and have all this. So I'm really fascinated at what you actually do. And can you really tell us that, once somebody, and it is an allegation or there's something has happened, money has been stolen or whatever, how do you go about doing your work? Without obviously giving us any details that you don't have to, but what is your first thing you do? What are the steps you take? I mean, imagine now you're facing the crime scene. What are you going to do? How do you go about your investigation? Yeah.
Personally, of course, not to make it so look like larger than life, but I always take it like a project, like any project. That once an allegation has come in, you're looking at the scope. Mm-hmm. Because some of the things are time bound, but also the scope. That in the process of investigating, you also find other things most times. But sometimes, of course, when an allegation is made that, let's say, Josephine's, there was a transaction that happened in Josephine's account for which she did not authorize. So that becomes now my go-to to actually confirm, first of all, did this transaction happen or not? And as such, I have to get access to Josephine's account. Now, if indeed I confirm that the transaction happened at the time she claimed to have happened, then we start from there. But if it is not, if not happen and there's no money, because if you say your money was taken off yesterday and we check the account and there's no transaction this week, then probably you got a notification that wasn't meant for you. So at least then we can confirm that your money is still there. You can confirm the bank balance previously and now, to which you can confirm. Now, if that is confirmed, then the case ends there. But if we actually find indeed that money was transferred, then the next thing is to follow the money. Where did the money go? Then what mode, or how did this money get off her account? Was it by mobile money? Was it e-banking, internet banking? Or did we have somebody physically come to the bank to withdraw? Now, after ascertaining, of course, the mode, then now, if it is physical, then now you get assistance from the CCTV to see who exactly was it. Because we have actually found that there are some people that have claimed money has gone off, but they're the ones who withdrew the money. So it is crazy. But
that's interesting. I thought you were going to say it was their spouse who withdrew the money, but yeah.
I'm also getting to that. I'm also getting to that in this film, there are so many things that you get to see, and you're amazed that you'll find a situation whereby somebody actually has just forgotten, because they claim the money has gone off because they went to, let's say, a branch in Gulu, and then they're in Kampala. Now they get notification, let's say, later because of intermittency. Then they're furious. They're like, no, this is the transaction actually you did in Gulu. Yes, the SMS may have come late, but this is the same. Then they come down and like, okay, fine. So case ends. Then there are instances whereby, like I said, our kind of culture that, let's say you find your spouse that becomes, while I'm preaching, maintain your secrecy of PIN, but as a spouse, you're like, what is yours, what is mine? So you find people sharing PINs that I know your PIN, but now in that instance, let's say I've withdrawn money, you don't know about it. Then of course, like, this bank has taken my money, only to find that, do you know this person? Yes, this is my husband. So now, but the kind of fury they come with, after that, people come down, they're like, okay, let's not raise a lot of dust, because so, and that's what I'm saying, that for sometimes we find that because people are sharing the culture, they're sharing their PIN, they're sharing their password, that somebody, it becomes easy to access. You find your grandmother or your mother saying, Deo, you're the one who knows these IT things. You go to the ATM and get from me, withdraw from me 500,000. Then Deo reaches there like, but why don't I get extra 100K? Get 600,000. Then at the end of the day, if she's too cautious to query the transaction, but I never withdrew 600,000. Only to find out that the person she sent took
more than,
yes, they put some tax on the transaction, black tax on the money.
Yes.
So this kind of transactions, I'm telling you that you'll be shocked that it's cross-cutting, but it also involves that it has a deep culture of connection, especially in the environment, with culture. But then again, as I was saying, that now after knowing the mode, after knowing if it is now genuine that somebody else unknown to you is the one who has taken the money, or she, then after following the money, because this money ends up somewhere, you're able to work backwards and at least find out that if this money was withdrawn from maybe a store in on Gaza Road, then you are able to find out, to ascertain, at least to pin down where the money was withdrawn. Now, if you also work backwards and find call logs of sometimes you find that this person who has withdrawn the money has been calling you, your phone, has been trying to tell you that UCC is going to block your phone. So you actually find that this person has been trailing you for some time. And so that's why you say that social engineering and all this, they always mix. that you find that somebody has been trailing you. Then for internet banking, you find that Josephine probably went to Forest Mall and, okay, let me use Dale because of his age group. And I'll explain why. That you'll find a bunch of a certain age group, the moment they go to a certain place, they'll seek for free Wi-Fi. Now, in seeking for free Wi-Fi, what most times we advise people is that do not transact any serious business on such untrusted mediums. And I remember Deo had asked me about malware. Now, every malware is divided into viruses and worms. Now, quickly, to put it in the way that viruses will also will have many of them. That some are also spyware, some are adware. Now, they are termed because of the intention of the person who has created them. That if you click on an untrusted link, especially let's say somebody wants to watch a football game, a Premiership game, but wants to use an untrusted source. But because it is free, you'll find that you have so many pop-ups, so many ads. But because your intention at that point is to watch a free soccer game, that those pop-ups may be spyware. Now, if a person is intentional and they know that the laptop probably Dale is using is actually for Josephine, that now today you are keying in your credentials, there's what we call keyloggers, that they will keep your credentials in that session, in those cookies, that now somebody will be able to get everything you put in clear text. That your name, your email address, your password are got in clear text. It's the same thing as you have with, let's say, your debit cards. That if somebody, we normally, let's say, the fuel station, you give it to the person, he keys in the button, gives it to you on those POS machines. But if I took a photo of the back and front, I have your credentials. So if you're not somebody who is security cautious, I may transact, buy everything I want on Amazon without your knowledge. That I may also do it at night when I know Josephine is asleep. So whatever notifications you get, you may not quickly run for aid. And as such, I'll do whatever I want and get them back. Now, that is all. I've given you different scenarios of how everything will work out during an investigation. So once we've now narrowed down to who exactly perpetrated it, in what form. Now, of course, nowadays, because of the new rulings, that certain burdens are on to the client. That if indeed Josephine shared your PIN, then the bank can't be liable. They can do so much, but the individual now, you take the blame because of the new rulings. So, but then if the liability falls on the bank, that actually it was an inside job, that Bernard connived with Dale who fleeced Josephine, then now that's a different case. That now, once the evidence is actually given, then the client, in all manner of senses, should be compensated. Then Bernard and Dale face the disciplinary committee, and as such, get their fair hearing. And if at all the evidence is to the dot, then they can be terminated, or further, they can also be arrested or taken to court to retrieve for punitive damages or something like that. So the case has really evolved, and I guess maybe in a nutshell.
when just to expand on that a little bit. So if the trail is obviously, if the trail is that somebody withdrew money from ATM or at the counter, whatever, that is within the banking industry, that is good. But given now we are all interconnected, if it was mobile money, for instance, and you know that the withdrawal was made by mobile money, and you investigate in this case, to what extent do you then have to deal with the mobile money company, or because we are now so interconnected in terms of our payments? How do you then conduct your investigation? Does that mean you have to go to that company and try and chase the trail? Does interconnectivity in the way we work now give you that access, or does it require more than that?
It depends on the person doing it. Now, if I am an employee of the bank, I am guided by the investigation charter, which spells out what bounds to what bounds I can reach. If we need corroboration from the mobile service provider, most times you get a court order to justify our actions. Now, if now the perpetrator really is not a staff of the bank, then now we may pursue it through police, the channel that has the authority to pursue civilian, somebody who is not part of the bank, but work together. Now, in this case, if I am a consultant as an individual, I may still work with police, but may now go further than what an employee of the bank would do, because of the limitations that you have, that you sometimes you can't pursue somebody who is not staff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So it depends on who is now doing it. And at the other point, of course, because of the corporations you have with the mobile agencies, then they too can share information. But most times you want to do it with a court order to make everything official. So that because once the investigation starts, the mindset is that you are doing everything in a certain way, mm-hmm. so that by the time you get to court, you have not missed any step or done anything that contravenes the rule of law.
Okay. But I guess now you are independent, so you're able to go outside and, if it's a financial crime that goes outside of the bank, you can do that now as an independent forensic consultant. Okay, great. Mm.
So, concerning that, who do you report to when it comes to such incidents, when you are following up and all that, your chain of command?
Chain of command, really, in my experience, this kind of work is kind of new, that it has been evolving, and every institution kind of treats it differently as they see fit at that point in time. Maybe I'll draw you to the audit function, how it evolved. You had the audit function years back, and they were reporting to probably the management. But then, of course, as things went on, people also questioned their independence. You can imagine if I'm reporting to Josephine and she's the one appraising me and the report is against her, your bias may come in. Mm. So I think the powers that be also realize that, and as such, now you find that the audit function reports to the audit board committee. Now, for investigations, you find that some of them will align to the risk function, others to may report to the different structures. Really, I don't want the things I was going to say, but every institution treats them differently. There are some institutions which now report to, when they have a group kind of setting, they also report to their group forensics function. So, of course, if it were up to me, I would want it to also report to a board committee, because then there you are given the independence and you avoid the biases, so that your report goes straight. And because trust me, if you're working with individuals, in my CFE training, certified fraud examiner, it is revealed that asset misappropriation is the most common fraud, but the amount of money that the institution loses is kind of about 30%. While frauds committed by management amount to 5%, but amount to the most money that institutions lose. So if you are reporting to senior management that is involved in that ethical behavior, then for some, you will have issues. And that's why you find that some places you have so much high turnover. Those are also red flags that maybe something is not happening right, that maybe your report is going up, but somebody is sitting on it.
I guess the higher you are, the more impact you have, as in
Certainly.
you can steal more probably.
Certainly. And in this culture where people are brought up where you don't question your father, if the MD says, please do this, some people will comply and not question them because they don't have that authority or confidence to question that person. Otherwise, you'll have issues also if you're ambitious.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess so now just to understand it. So you work with, obviously you talked about having to work collaboratively, and in your role as an investigator, you said you work with police. You also do you go directly to court to get some kind of court order if you need to work with telco company?
At the moment, if working with police is easier to get the court order, because if you have reported a crime, then you are given a police a number.
Okay.
So it is in that basis that now court also gives you the court order because of that case that has been reported. Now, as intern, if you are before, when I was internal, of course you work with police, or if you now think that this case is actually going to end up in court, you also register the complaint, and then you work with police to get that court order that will compel the mobile service provider to give you that information. Because doing it, if you don't do it in the proper way, then you are going to face challenges with data privacy. Because say MTN is not going to just gladly give you information of their clients, because their clients can also sue them that you didn't seek consent from me before sharing this kind of information.
Okay. So so you collect when a case is going to be it's criminal and it's going to court. You still submit evidence to police as part of that case, or how does that work?
No, it depends on what police is actually going to do. But at the end of the day, as the main investigator, you are the one going to adduce the evidence. Or in the case when police is involved, you can give them the original, but you should also retain your copy. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one going to stand in court to back up what evidence I found or the methods I used.
Mm-hmm. There you have. Maybe if I can just ask one more. It's about we make assumptions that it's always about financial crime, right? That you investigate, but your investigation is digital. You're looking for digital evidence. What other things do you investigate apart from financial crime? Is there other things that we need to know? Because I think obviously we're always worried about the financial crime, money and all that. But are there other kind of cases that you investigate?
Yes, certainly. Because if you're in an institution, then you have procurement fraud, you have asset misappropriation, you have someone who has there are companies where you buy assets, and before you know it, probably the procurement officer says, or the person in charge of assets says, these assets are no longer functional, we need to sell them. So there's always fraud evolves in different spheres, especially procurement, asset misappropriation, even simple, what you may call onboarding of new staff. That did they follow the right channel? So anything that seems unethical falls into a category of fraud, or simply put, not following the procedure of the institution.
Yeah. Okay, great. Dale, you?
I think you can handle that next question.
I think it's about the one about the impact. Is there any? Can you just give us a case, perhaps, where you really your skills, for instance, have really made a big difference to an investigation? So there was a significant impact in how the investigation was either resolved or done.
It's a good one. I could say there are two instances, and one of them that I'm passionate about is really the preventive action. Is that you'll find that most institutions, the hemorrhage is that what people forget most times, that you say that we haven't made profit at the end of the year, and that is the bottom line. It has many factors to it. Yes, your sales may not be up as you wanted, or your cost of your capex or opex have affected it. But then you forget the hemorrhage. Say, I'm going to run around the bush because of not wanting to say certain things, but I'll give you probably an example. Imagine a scenario where you have agents. These agents, because you're trying to maximize on your outreach to your clients, so the agents are your representative of the bank. So what appeals to them to join you is that whatever transactions you make, we shall give you a commission. So, but then you find that now the agents, after doing that, they realize that if Deo comes to withdraw 1 million, but the commission of 1 million is probably, say, 50,000. But if the commission, if I split Deo's 1 million into two, I'll get commission twice. So you find that if this person is doing it for 100 people, they're going to affect the overall bank's profitability because you are giving out more for just the same kind of transaction.
Would the commission for 500 be the same as a million? Or it's...
Not necessarily. That's why I'm saying hypothetically. But the more the transactions, that's why you hear that there's transaction splitting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've been to a mobile store and they say, no, let me first give you 500, I'll give you the next one, I don't have enough money. But in essence, they're splitting the transaction. So for them, the more transactions, the more they benefit. But it comes at the cost of the institution. So by analyzing the trends, found that many people were actually being dishonest. And as such, most of them had to refund the
commission.
The commissions, yes.
Yeah.
And this, of course, was, how you monitor your agents for a period of 6 months. That's not a one day off, that you can see this person has been doing this. And it's a pattern that within a minute or two, he's serving the same client. So you manage to find a pattern. And as such, you have substantial evidence to conclude that this person is not being honest. So, and in the interview process, the person actually confesses to it. And most times they settle because they don't, now you have so much evidence, but they still want to. So it is a method that has brought in more money, because I like to look at it in the way of how have I impacted on the institution that I'm working for? Because while yes, you may get Bernard has done something, but if the impact is also not monetary, it may not be felt. The work may not be felt. So I try to always look at what is the financial impact through that institution. So that particular case, it may seem average, but monitoring that transaction and coming up with a report that management actually believe that these particular agents are fleecing us, was something that I feel was something that could be up there. Because then we now monitor going forward. It changes the way we deal with people.
Yeah,
it changes the way our MOUs are crafted. So I think it was something that I could, at this moment, I could give as something that was impactful.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds incredible because there's so many agents and so many transactions. So you can imagine if you're losing out on every transaction because it's being split. I think that's a great one. Dale?
Now, with such a situation, do you find log aggregation being very key in terms of capturing such anomalies?
Of course, because there's no way you can now monitor and analyze such transaction without them being logged.
And do you find that AI would be very convenient for such a situation?
Yes, yes and no, because
They're doing research, so
I know he's interested in AI. Because you see, of course, AI, you're going to feed it with modules. And these modules come from human interaction, because the module that works today is not going to work tomorrow, because the fraud will keep changing faces. So in that instances, the person handling the AI, I don't want to say AI can work independently alone. In this phase, you must have two. Yes, there may be certain things that have happened over time and have been mastered, and they will raise red flags. But raising the red flag does not necessarily mean that it is actually what? A fraudulent activity. It is something to look into further and actually ascertain whether it is. It could be an outlier. So like the example you gave of, let's say, transaction of at 1 a.m. by Josephine, that most times you not expect her to be up. But at that particular point, she could be in another country, and the time flag shows it is 1 a.m. here, but she did it from the UK, and as such it was 9 p.m. probably, or 9 or 10. So those are things that AI, yes, will flag it, but it only flags by the modules you're giving it, that how are your clients, how do they transact. It is only you who can give it that module, and then it can also adapt. But somebody has to be a human person, has to be there. I know many people are afraid AI will take jobs, but there has to be a human element there to actually understand the kind of DNA your clients have.
I think this has been a fascinating conversation. And I know we can talk, but as we are coming to the end of our time, thank you very much for sharing your experience. I know your journey into forensic, how you work, the challenges that you face, especially around people and compliance and things like that. As we wrap up, what's the one thing that you had only one thing to say to the listeners that you'd want to say about the work you do as an investigator? What should we really, really be looking out for in terms of the preventive thing that people should be doing? What was the one thing that you would tell our listeners?
The one thing I would emphasize really is you have to be cautious and also be responsible of the security around you. And in the event you lose an asset, or say a phone or something that is going to be is tagged to your, say, two-factor authentication, I would urge every listener to report first to your bank. Because if you report to your bank, your financial institution, then they can block any transaction going forward.
So not the telco, not the telco.
No, the bank. It depends on what you are interested in. But if it is your money, report to the bank so that your account can be blocked temporarily. Then you can now go to the police, then the telco. Because if you also go to the telecom without the police, sometimes you may have a back and forth. But now if you have reported to police and you have a police letter, then the telco will also do their job. But the first thing, the one and only thing, like you've said, report to your financial institution so that they can block temporary account. Because by the time you go, imagine it is a Friday and you go to police. By the time it is Monday, if the bank does not know about your transaction, the account may be empty. And then you now work backwards. So working backwards, of course, like you said, there are so many challenges that you can't give assurance that in a day or two, your money will be back. But you could have suffered enormous financial loss. Yeah,
that's a good one. Dale?
Yes, I guess that's it for today. Do you have also final thoughts, Josephine?
No, I mean, I've just been learning. I've been writing and learning, and I really, I find the whole. No, I think I might look into forensic investigations. Although when you tell me about the accreditation you have, I'm not sure I want to go back to school. But
I could mentor you.
Actually, that's a good idea. I just find it absolutely fascinating. But I think we appreciate your time. We really appreciate your time and for coming and talking to us. I think, as I said, I've learned a lot. I really cannot really add more. I wish we could have had more time to speak to you longer. But thank you very much for the interest in the podcast. And thank you for your time once again.
Okay.
Thank you too. And it was a wonderful moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Dale. Thank you.